Cadillac sold the hand-built 1957 Eldorado Brougham for $13,074 and put its proudest engineering idea underneath it. 4 air springs were supposed to keep this 5,000-pound luxury car perfectly level. Yet many surviving Broughams now ride on ordinary steel coils because Cadillac itself offered owners a conversion kit. The company that called itself the standard of the world had built a suspension that could make its finest car sink. Forget the perfume bottle for a moment. The real story is below the floor, where an elegant idea met heat, cold, vibration, and time. Detroit, 1957. Cadillac was not trying to build a slightly nicer sedan. The Eldorado Brougham was a hand-built statement about what an American luxury car could be when cost was allowed to become almost irrelevant. General Motors says only 400 were built that year. Each one cost nearly twice the price of an Eldorado convertible, and the Brougham carried equipment that looked more like a preview than an options list. There was a brushed stainless steel roof, 4 headlamps, forged aluminum wheels, a power seat with memory, automatic door locks, air conditioning, power windows, a transistorized radio, an automatic trunk opener, and 44 available leather trim combinations. Its 365 cubic inch V8 produced 325 horsepower. None of that was hidden. Cadillac wanted people to see the future from across the street. The Brougham also served a purpose that sales totals cannot measure. Cadillac could place an idea on 400 hand-built cars, make it the center of every showroom conversation, and use the result to defend its position at the top of the General Motors hierarchy. A feature did not have to appear on every Cadillac to influence how buyers saw the entire brand. That made the Brougham a public laboratory. The memory seat demonstrated that a car could remember its driver. The transistor radio suggested that compact electronics were replacing vacuum tubes. The forged wheels made advanced materials part of the sales pitch. Each feature carried some risk, but the air suspension carried the weight of the automobile itself. If the radio failed, the Brougham remained a car. If the memory function stopped, the seat could still support a passenger. A suspension failure reached deeper. It challenged the machine's basic readiness to move, which is why the system's reputation eventually overshadowed so many features that worked. The most consequential feature was harder to notice. Cadillac replaced the steel springs at all 4 corners with air springs. A compressor supplied pressurized air. An accumulator stored it. Leveling valves adjusted the pressure as passengers and luggage changed the load. The goal was not simply a softer ride. The car was supposed to maintain a consistent height whether one person or several were inside. That promise solved several problems at once. A level body preserved suspension travel. It kept the headlights aimed more consistently. It reduced the sag that made a heavily loaded car look tired. And because an air spring changes its effective rate as it compresses, Cadillac's engineers believed it could combine a gentle response to small bumps with firmer support when the road or load demanded more. In a technical paper published by SAE International, 4 General Motors engineers described the system's aims plainly: constant height, smoother ride, and better handling. They also believed the design met their targets for size, cost, durability, adaptability, and spring rate. On the test track, the future appeared to work. But the Brougham was not going to spend its life on a test track. It would sit overnight in winter, cross hot pavement in summer, absorb potholes, collect dirt and moisture, and depend on dealerships to diagnose a system their mechanics had never seen on a customer car. That changed the problem completely. Steel coil spring is brutally simple. It can rust, crack, or sag after long service, but it does not need pressure to hold the car up. Air suspension depends on a sealed system. The compressor, reservoir, lines, valves, fittings, and rubber spring assemblies all have to cooperate. One leak can force the compressor to work harder. Several leaks can lower a corner or eventually settle the whole car. The Eldorado Brougham therefore asked 1957 materials to do something unusually unforgiving. Rubber had to flex while remaining airtight. Valves had to respond accurately. Connections had to survive years of motion and temperature changes. The design had many potential leak points, and the failure was not subtle. A Brougham that lost enough pressure could sink until it was effectively immobilized. That is an extraordinary fate for a car built to project effortless wealth. Its owner could press a button to open the trunk, ask the seat to remember a preferred position, and let the headlamps dim automatically. But if the suspension lost air in the garage, the most advanced Cadillac in America might not be ready to leave it. The irony is sharper because the original engineering goals were sensible. Keeping a luxury car level under changing loads is useful. Isolating passengers from road impacts is useful. Giving engineers more control over ride height and spring behavior is useful. Cadillac had not solved an imaginary problem. It had created a service problem while solving an engineering one. The difference matters. A technology can work exactly as intended during development and still fail as a product if maintaining it demands more time, training, or replacement parts than customers will tolerate. The Eldorado Brougham was sold to people who had paid for the least inconvenient automobile Cadillac could imagine. A suspension that required repeated attention violated that promise, even when every other luxury feature worked. Collectors still live with the consequence. Hemmings documented an unrestored 1957 Brougham owned by Alan Haas, a former Cadillac and General Motors service manager and former national president of the Cadillac and LaSalle Club. Like many surviving examples, his car had been changed to conventional coil springs. Cadillac had made that choice possible by offering a conversion kit as a factory part. Haas identified leaking air bladders as a central weakness. That detail explains why the problem could be stubborn even when a compressor still operated. A compressor can replace a small amount of lost pressure, but it cannot make a damaged spring airtight. Running longer only treats the symptom. The car may rise again, then settle after the system shuts down. Diagnosis could also become a chain of questions. Was the compressor producing enough pressure? Was the reservoir holding it? Did a line or fitting leak? Was a leveling valve calling for air at the wrong time? Was one rubber spring losing pressure faster than the others? A conventional spring eliminates nearly all of those questions because its support is mechanical and visible. For a Cadillac dealership, that difference meant unfamiliar procedures, special information, and time. The surviving factory literature includes dedicated air suspension development material, compressor and leveling valve service information, electrical diagrams, and monthly Cadillac serviceman bulletins. The volume of documentation shows how seriously the company supported the system. It also shows how much knowledge the new system asked a service department to absorb. Think about what that kit represented. Cadillac was not merely supplying a revised seal or an improved valve. It gave owners a path to remove the very technology that distinguished the car. The company could preserve the automobile by surrendering the suspension concept underneath it. For an owner in the late 1950s or 1960s, the decision was practical. Steel coils did not need an air compressor to keep the body above the pavement. A converted car could be driven, serviced, and parked with less anxiety. For a collector today, the same conversion creates an authenticity puzzle. A Brougham on coils may be easier to use, but it no longer demonstrates Cadillac's most ambitious experiment. Restoring the air system makes the car historically complete, yet it also restores the complexity that led many owners to remove it. This is where the Eldorado Brougham becomes more than a tale about bad rubber. The car sits at the boundary between two definitions of luxury. The older definition emphasized handwork, rare materials, and elaborate accessories. The Brougham had all of that. The stainless roof and rich interior announced exclusivity in a language anyone could understand. The newer definition treated technology itself as luxury. A premium car should sense a change, make an adjustment, and spare its owner from thinking about the mechanism. The memory seat, automatic locks, powered trunk, and self-leveling suspension all followed that idea. They moved luxury away from decoration and toward invisible assistance. That is the world modern cars now inhabit. The Brougham reached for it before the supporting materials, service knowledge, and manufacturing experience were equally mature. Yet the familiar story that Cadillac tried air suspension once and immediately ran away is too simple. General Motors' own 1959 Cadillac data book still promoted air suspension. It described the system as maintaining designed clearance, preserving wheel travel, helping headlamp aim, and keeping the car at its intended height under different loads. Cadillac also described refinements to the system for that model year. The company still believed in the idea because the idea was valuable. It kept developing the concept even after the Brougham exposed the cost of getting it wrong in customers' garages. That persistence deserves as much attention as the failure. Early technology is often remembered in one of two lazy ways. It becomes either a miracle that predicted everything or a foolish gadget that never worked. The Brougham suspension was neither. It delivered real benefits when sealed and adjusted correctly. It also imposed real penalties when its many components aged or leaked. The result was a car that could be both visionary and troublesome, without either description cancelling the other. The numbers make the risk easier to understand. General Motors lists the Brougham at more than 5,300 pounds. Supporting that mass on 4 air springs required constant pressure and accurate leveling. The system was not an accessory added to ordinary springs. The air was the spring. When pressure disappeared, there was no simple steel backup waiting to carry the load. That all-or-nothing design made every small seal part of the car's basic ability to stand. Cadillac had turned ride height into a network, and a network is only as dependable as its weakest connection. Modern air suspension works with far better materials, electronic controls, sensors, diagnostics, and decades of accumulated experience. It still is not maintenance-free. Owners of newer luxury cars know that compressors, valves, lines, and air springs can eventually become expensive. The engineering trade remains recognizable, even though the hardware has improved dramatically. That makes the 1957 Brougham feel less like a curiosity and more like the first chapter of an argument the luxury car business is still having. How much complexity should a manufacturer accept to make a car feel effortless? At what point does a feature meant to remove discomfort create a new kind of worry? The phrase "ahead of its time" is often used as a compliment, but it can hide an important distinction. A successful feature needs more than a good principle. It needs materials that survive, factories that produce consistent parts, technicians who can diagnose failures, replacement components that remain available, and customers who trust the system after the warranty period. The Brougham had the principle. General Motors engineers had defined the benefits and built a functioning design. The weak link was the complete ownership system around it. That is why judging the car only by a smooth test drive misses half the engineering challenge. A luxury feature has to work on the 1000th cold morning as convincingly as it worked during the first press demonstration. Reliability is not separate from luxury. It is the part of luxury the owner notices only when it disappears. Cadillac's answer in 1957 was to accept almost any complexity that made the Brougham seem more advanced. The factory conversion kit was the quieter answer that followed. Some owners preferred a car that stayed level because steel held it there. If you were restoring an Eldorado Brougham, which history would you preserve? Would you rebuild the original air system and accept its demands, or install the factory-style coils and drive the car with fewer worries? Share which choice you would make. The Eldorado Brougham still looks like a machine designed to float past ordinary traffic. Its stainless roof catches the light, its 4 doors open around an unobstructed cabin, and every polished detail says Cadillac spared nothing. But the most revealing part remains invisible. When an original Brougham stands at the correct height after a long night in the garage, that ordinary sight is the achievement. 4 air springs, 3 leveling valves, a compressor, a reservoir, and dozens of connections have all kept their promise. And when a converted Brougham does the same thing on steel coils, it tells the other half of the story. Cadillac built the future in 1957. Then it gave owners a way to live without it.